Hello and welcome once again to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Jamaica, its history, its people, its trials, tribulations, what makes Jamaica the country it is today. Country of 3 million people, it has had a profound effect on the modern world as we know it. Now before we go on, I'd like to thank all my friends, family, subscribers. Join me again, and if you join me for the first time, if you like what you hear, like to hear more, please like and subscribe. Now, Jamaica, what does that bring to mind when you hear of this island in the Caribbean? Is it an island paradise? Reggae, of which everyone who, almost anywhere in the world you mention the name reggae, and Bob Marley's name comes to fore. Thank you. Also, athletics. The Jamaican men and women team has been rather rampant in the world of athletics lately, both the Olympics and the World Championships, and a certain gentleman called Usain Bolt. And Usain, if you're watching me today, please like and subscribe. Now, what makes Jamaica Jamaica? Now, the history of Jamaica is a rich and vibrant one, which has inspired their people to move forward as a nation. Their history speaks for itself. Their experience of hardship and prosperity has given them a determination to move forward and succeed. The original inhabitants of Jamaica are believed to be the Arawaks, also called Tainos. They came up from South America around 2,500 years ago, named the island Jamaica, which meant land of wood and water. The Arawaks were mild and simple people by nature. Physically, they were light brown in colour, short and well-shaped with coarse black hair. Their faces were broad and reportedly their noses were flat. They grew cassava, sweet potato, root vegetables, maize, corn, fruits, vegetables, cotton, and tobacco. Now, tobacco was their favourite pastime, so they grew that quite extensively. They built their villages all over the island, but mainly they lived along the coast near rivers, because their diet was fish was important in their diet. Now, the Arawaks led a quiet and peaceful life until they were virtually destroyed by the Spaniards some years after they were found by the European explorer Christopher Columbus. The discovery of Jamaica on May the 5th, 1494 by Christopher Columbus, the European explorer, as I said before, who sailed west to try and find a passage to the East Indies, came upon a region which is now called the West Indies. Now, this occurred on his second. He discovered Jamaica on his second voyage, because basically he was told about it by the Tainos in Cuba, who the Spanish were quite determined to get gold, and they weren't polite about it. So, to save themselves, more than likely, the Tainos in Cuba pointed to a little island in Jamaica, and which they called Jamaica, which they nicknamed it the land of blessed gold. Columbus was soon to find out there was no gold actually in Jamaica, but he's quite determined. So on arrival at St. Anne's Bay, Columbus found the Arawak Indians, quite hostile initially. They prevented his men from actually landing in St. Anne's Bay. But he was quite determined, because he needed wood and water to repair his ship, and also he wanted to annex the island for the glory of the King and Queen of Spain. So they sailed up the coast to Discovery Bay, where the Arawaks, they were still quite hostile, but by determination and the use of dogs and crossbow by his crew, he was able to land. The native Arawaks were so overworked by the Spanish in their quest to develop the land as farms, and with the introduction of European diseases like smallpox and chickenpox and syphilis and so forth, they died out quite quickly. The island remained poor under Spanish rule, as few Spaniards later settled there. Basically, Jamaica was used as a staging post for men, weapons, horses, and ship for the Spanish's conquest of the mainland, which had gold from the Aztec man and later on the Incas. Now, 15 years later, in 1509, after the first visit to the island, the first Spanish colonists came under the Spanish governor Juan de Escobar. They settled in St. Anne's Bay area. The first town there was called New Seville, or Sevilla la Nueva. Towns were little more than settlements. The only town that was developed was Spanish Town, the old capital of Jamaica, then called Santo Juego de la Vega. It was a center of government and trade and had many churches and convents. The little attention that the colony received from Spain soon led to internal strife. This contributed to the weakening of the colony in the last years of Spanish occupation. The governors were not getting proper support from home, and quarrels with the church authorities undermined their control. Also, frequent attacks by English and French pirates contributed to the colony's woes, which of course weakened it to such an extent that it was ripe for the picking, for which the English were ready and waiting to pick that apple. So ends part 1 of the history of Jamaica. I hope you will join me in my next video for part 2.